Hi friends, welcome back to another episode of Washing Dishes. On this episode, instead of making a single dish, I'm going to make several components of a fully composed dish. Bacon-wrapped pork tenderloin with carrots 3 ways. I've split it into chapters to keep everything in order, so I hope you'll excuse some continuity issues for that sake. We're going to start with the pork, of course, which we'll wrap in the bacon. I've got some orange and white carrots, which we're going to use the tops of, along with some peas and other ingredients, nuts, cheese, oil, to make a carrot top pesto. I'm going to roast the white carrots and then turn the orange carrots into a puree with some ginger, some butter, and garlic, and some heavy cream, or some half and half in this case. Come along. First thing we got to do for our pork loin is give it a quick trim. Just get off any of the kind of surface fat or connective tissue and silver skin. It should just take a moment, and then we can get on to seasoning and wrapping it in the bacon. It's important that you not skip this step, even though it's very tempting to do so, because all of this stuff that we're cutting off is just stuff that's not going to break down when we cook it, and is going to be just like stringy and chewy and like eating rubber bands. So take a couple of minutes. It's not a lot of work, but it's worth the time and effort. And in real time, I think this took me about 5 minutes, so not really that long. Once we've got the pork trimmed up, we're going to lay out a row of bacon as long as our pork tenderloins. And as we do that, we're just going to kind of press each strip of bacon into the previous strip, which will just kind of help it all stick together better when we go to roll it up. We've also got the plastic wrap under it, which we can use for some kind of keeping together force as we roll it up. Once we've got the bacon laid out, we'll go ahead and season our pork, put the pork on the bacon, and start rolling it up, and then we'll tie it. Adding a little bit of mustard to the bacon is also going to add some lovely flavor, which is, delicious mustard flavor, and help the bacon and the pork loin stick better to each other. The pork loin itself is getting a very simple salt and pepper seasoning because it is, despite being the protein and it going to be very pretty, not the star of the show on this dish. It's on the dish to help accentuate and provide contrast and a platform to elevate and display the various ways in which carrots can be prepared. To roll this up, we're going to lay it across, flip the back of it over, and then continue to roll that onto the front. And once we've got it all nice and tucked together, we're going to very carefully unroll just the plastic wrap and shimmy it out from the inside before we tie this all up with some string. We're going to tie this with a few pieces of string tied in butcher's knots, which is just a square knot like that, cinch down, and then you do one twist, and then a second twist, and then you cinch it down again, and that locks it in nice and tight. If you can do one, it's a snap to do a few more. With the pork in the cold oven that's coming up to 350 degrees, it's time to turn our attention to the carrots. We're going to start with carrot puree, but first we're going to set aside the greens so that they can soak in some water and get clean because they're, covered in dirt and that kind of stuff. I'm going to pick out the kind of not so great looking ones first and then let them drain off in the water. We're going to give the carrots a quick peel, a quick chop, and then we're going to boil them in some salted water until they are very, very soft. We're making a puree here. It's okay if they get a little too mushy. You don't want them falling apart, but softer is better to a point. Once the carrots are soft, first try to use an old-fashioned, very neat vintage food mill. Then decide that's not going to work and switch over to the blender to add the carrots and the a bunch of ginger, a bunch of butter, and a bunch of cream until it is creamy and smooth and delicious. Salt it and pepper it to taste, and then set it aside and keep it warm while we continue on with the rest of our meal. The roasted carrots are predictably the easiest part. We're just going to peel them, slice them in half, and then throw them on the pan to roast with the pork, and they'll roast in the rendered fat and be just absolutely delicious with little more than salt, pepper, and roasting in pork fat. To start the pesto, we're going to start by blanching our peas in some boiling water, just long enough to kind of get them that really vibrant, bright green, and then we're going to shock them in some very cold water, and then we'll continue on with the rest of the ingredients. The rest of those ingredients, of course, being our rinsed and dried carrot tops, which we will add to our blender, along with some peas, some cashews, some Parmesan cheese, some garlic, and then it's time for the oil. And we're basically just going to add extra virgin olive oil until this reaches a kind of spreadable, pourable consistency and forms a really nice emulsion. Then we'll season it with salt and pepper and adjust it, and it'll be good to go. And just to make sure everything's ready to go, we'll temp our beautiful pork loin and see that it is at 145 degrees, which is perfect. Carryover heat will take it the rest of the way to
That's exactly what we want.
the perfect temperature, and that means it's time to plate. First things first, let's cut into this gorgeous pork loin and check out a beautiful cross-section. Ah, there it is. Beautiful, just barely pink in the middle. That is like the perfect doneness for pork loin. We'll do a little smear of our carrot puree across the plate. You know, kind of pile it up and then spread it out to form a nice little base for the rest of our plating. The trick to a good chefy smear is doing it in one motion with confidence. I'm going to lay my beautiful roasted carrots in kind of a little bit of a crisscross kind of tangle pattern, which will build up a little bit of height. You know, it's a taller plate looks prettier, and that'll form like kind of a nice bed to put the pork on, which we're going to cut right now into some pretty thick slices. It'll help it kind of stay together. And it looks like a heartier portion on the plate. We'll just cut around that little string into two beautiful thick slices and just shingle them on one laying a little bit over the other on top of our puree of carrots and our roasted carrots. And then we're going to top it off with a couple of little beautiful dollops of our carrot and top and green pea pesto. Just kind of spread along the top, add some beautiful bright green color to the dish, and just makes for a really wonderful, fresh presentation, perfect for not quite, but almost spring. And there we have it, our beautiful final plate up. Carrots three ways. As a supporting character, we've got bacon-wrapped pork loin. Now, let's taste it. If there's a puree on the plate, it's the first thing I'm going to taste, and this puree is delightful. It's rich, it's creamy, it's got a lot of good ginger and carrot flavor in it, and it's not like overly heavy. The roasted carrots, I mean, it's carrots roasted in bacon fat. What more do you want? The pork, of course, we're going to cut into it, taste it with the pesto, and it is just absolutely divine. The bacon didn't stay attached quite as well as I had hoped, but as like a composed bite, it is absolutely wonderful. These are generally pretty simple individual recipes that you can do either one at a time or all together, and I hope you'll try it. Blooper!
Thanks for staying till the end. I really appreciate it. If you like that, check out a couple of these other videos. They're probably up your alley too. I have a Twitch channel at twitch.tv/washinthewind. I'm on Twitter at washinthewind, and I'm on Instagram at washinthewind, but without the E. mostly because of the character limit. If you'd like to show some support, a Twitch sub or a Patreon subscription would be wonderful, but what helps the most is a like, a subscribe here, and sharing the video with your friends. I hope you've had a wonderful time enjoying the video. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your time zone. Thanks very much for watching.